Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Subtext Podcast Archives. These are the long-lost episodes of the Subtext that were originally produced between 2015 and 2017. In 2018, the Subtext moved to American Theater Magazine, and we've been producing the pod there monthly ever since. These time capsules are being shared here in their entirety, including plenty of outdated references and advertisements for events far in the past. If you enjoy them, please subscribe to the current podcast feed for the Subtext or stream new episodes on the website for American Theater Magazine. Thank you for listening.
I met Holly a few weeks ago. She's been standing on a corner near a Starbucks for a while now. I always avoid her. She has a sign that says, "Sometimes just a smile will do." I've seen her near the freeway exit in the past, but lately she's been on this corner. It's a massive understatement to say I've been in a mood lately. I snapped, "I have no money for you," when Holly simply said hello as I walked past her. I should have expected an attitude in return. Instead, Holly asked, "What happened to your hand?" I stopped walking, looked down at my right hand, which is in a bulky splint. Then I looked back at her. She seemed genuinely curious, not angry or irritated or crazy. My left hand held a cup of coffee. I turned toward her and I said, "I had surgery on my finger. It has to be like this for 6 weeks. She gave me a look of pity. "Aw, I'm sorry you're going through that, especially this time of year." I decided to stop running away from her. We chatted for about 10 minutes. She asked about my job. She told me she was just hired to do janitorial work. She hoped to save enough money for an apartment soon. Holly's been an accountant in the past. She used to be a female bodybuilder. She became a born-again Christian several years ago after getting assaulted her first night on the street. "I'm strong," she said, "even though it's been years since I lifted weights. I would have been okay if there were only one of them." Holly doesn't look particularly healthy to me. Her smile belies her appearance. As we talk, she continuously says hello to people as they walk by as if they're lifelong friends. I'm starting to realize her smile is her superpower. "It's my time of year," she tells me. "You're a big fan of the holidays?" I ask. She rolls up her sleeve all the way to her bicep. There's a Christmas wreath tattooed and a ring around her arm. "Holly," she says. I laughed, probably a little too enthusiastically for such a silly thing, but it kind of surprised me, and she beamed with pride. We talked for a couple more minutes about the Christian pastors she hoped would be visiting the convention center soon. Joel Osteen is her favorite because he's so happy and positive all the time. She ended the conversation eventually, possibly sensing she'd taken up too much of my time. I would have kept talking because I genuinely liked her. She wished me a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday and walked back to her sign, which had become askew when a passerby accidentally bumped it with their elbow. I continued walking back to the office, slightly less moody than I was before. So, I guess her sign was right. Welcome to the Subtext. My name is Brian James Polak, playwright / podcaster / borderline germphobe. Thanks to those of you who have gone onto iTunes to rate and comment on our show. You warm my cold winter heart with every comment. If you are the type of person who comments on such things, please go to iTunes now and write something while you listen to the rest of this. Our guest this month is Padraic Duffy, parent, playwright, managing director of Sacred Fools Theater Company.
Well, you need to do more outreach then.
I'm doing my best. I'm starting with you.
I'm from Tarzana, so I can't help you there.
So you grew up in Tarzana?
Yeah, I grew up in the Valley. Grew up in Tarzana. Was born in Santa Monica, and then my parents, for a while, lived in a tiny cockroach-infested apartment on Cherokee in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah?
In an apartment building there. They would literally hand me to, like, the street urchins to watch me while they went and earned money and tried to act and stuff. And then grew up in Tarzana and went to high school in North Hollywood. And so and then I've lived on this side of the hills as an adult. But I don't admit to everyone that I'm from Tarzana. I don't admit to the valley.
Well, the funny thing is, people not from here don't know. I don't know Tarzana. Like, you could tell me that Tarzana is this, gated utopia, and I'd be like, oh.
I will not tell you that.
That will be a lie.
That would be a lie. No, it was a perfectly fine place. It was nice. I like it. It's far away now, now that I've only lived downtown is like as far east as I want to go.
Right.
Like, I never really, I've just bounced around, and as an adult I've bounced around all the places that are cool and dirty to live on the east side. So I've lived in Echo Park and Glassell Park and Silver Lake and Los Feliz and Atwater and
That's so funny, though, because all of those places, and for people who don't know Los Angeles geography very well, every place you just mentioned is with like a 3-mile radius of each other.
Yes, I should just say Dodger Stadium adjacent.
Right, yeah.
And then that would be enough. Yeah.
You went to high school in North Hollywood. Were you a theater geek?
Yeah, I was. I did. The school I went to had it was a really small private school, but they had a good theater department. So we would, I was definitely a theater geek. There was a tiny core of us who would do a lot of stuff, and did all the, I'm 16, I look like I'm 12, and I'm playing a 50-year-old divorcee with a mustache.
Sure, yeah.
And so,
because, what 16-year-old can't connect to that kind of?
Yeah, really. I in college I did a lot of acting in college too, and I was in an original show that my friend wrote and directed, where I played a father who abused his son, who like beat his son up, or like sexually. It was some like hard subject, and it was me in like a little mustache with like a briefcase, like
yeah,
with
course.
a tweed jacket, like coming in, and I think I had one scene, because the whole play was about this angsty kid who just hung out and was angry at everyone.
Right.
And so,
because he was sexually abused by his father.
Yeah, no, the backstory was as simple and as, serious as, a sophomore in college would, conjure up.
Right.
And so I was in one scene in this play where I don't even think I'm coming home. I think it's his apartment. So I just come to his apartment to talk to him. And so I had like 3 minutes of just, I'm a broken man and I'm sorry. And he just looked at me through his bangs, and then I left. And it was, and then there was the scene changes. There were like 10 scene changes. And I tease the guy who wrote it he's a really talented guy, but we were all like 17. So,
right.
He had the same Sting song that played during each scene change, and it was long, so we'd have to hear the same 30 seconds of the Sting song every scene change. There's like 15 scene changes. And even if there's nothing to do in the scene change, we would just like go to black and listen to the song.
Oh, because
for a
that's
while.
the concept, right?
Yes.
It's a Sting concept.
And then there was a scene where we heard the whole song all the way through, while this is terrible. He's going to hear this and think, but while the main character tossed playing cards into a hat, and it was a very sort of somber.
No
sad,
dialogue.
No dialogue.
Just the whole
song.
This guy really, really liked Sting a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Sting song was about like playing cards, and then it was, we learned.
That's funny. It's sort of like the melancholy, like 90s music.
Yeah, I mean, this had to have been like 93, or 94, maybe 94. So it was,
That's so funny. I wonder who the Sting equivalent would be today.
It might still be Sting.
It might still be Sting.
Oh, no.
Fields of Gold.
I think what was it back then? I forget. It was one of those Fields of Gold songs.
I kind of want to put Fields of Gold underneath what we're talking about right now, to just underscore this.
I think Most theater would be better if it just had a field of gold underneath it. And then I did a play at the same stage. I think it was the next, because it was like the Young Playwrights Festival or something. So I think the next year, just so we have equal opportunity, I'll make fun of my own play. I did a play that took place on a roof, and it was one of those classic college productions where we built an entire roof on stage for, I think, 4 performances.
Right.
We did like 2 weekends.
Right.
But it was a fully shingled roof, and it was 3 angsty brothers on a roof, and it was called the Doppler effect. Because I found a lot of thematic resonance in red shifts and blue shifts.
Okay.
And so they were talking about their relationship, and then every so often a siren would go by, and it would red shift, then the stage would go red or blue. It's very meaningful.
Right, everything has to mean so much.
I think it's where you kind of feel out what metaphor is, or what, you know. I mean, it's you still feel the same depth about a metaphor, but you don't necessarily have all the same subtle tools of how to manifest it. And so but I still think of that I mean, I directed it myself too, and we did auditions.
Did you perform in it?
No, I didn't perform in it. That's where I sort of made the transition of maybe you shouldn't be on the stage. Maybe when I was deciding that I wasn't really an actor.
What was there a trigger for that?
Not getting cast was contributed to it in general. I was the type of person who I always got in the show, but I was never the lead. They'd always find a place for me. But also, I just love creating an artifact. I love that about writing. I love making something. I think if I had any sort of visual art skills, I would love to paint. I would love to make crafts. I would just like creating something that's durable. Then I like sort of the ephemeral, manifestation of it into a play or into production, and the fact that just is like mist and goes away. That's beautiful. But
the artifact lives
on. I love having
a
script. I love stacking my scripts on my desk. I love the act of rewriting and then getting a new artifact, and I love that. So I think the idea of performance, while I'm surrounded by them. I'm married to one. My parents are everyone I know is a performer. But that just didn't really connect to me as much.
Did you think when you were younger, growing up in an acting family, did you think that was going to be your trajectory?
My parents were different in that. So my mom was a ballet dancer, and my dad was an actor. They both didn't do that classic discouraging me from, when you hear people who say don't get into that business, it's tough. It's where I've always thought they were thrilled that I wanted to be a starving artist coming out of college. They probably wanted to make sure that I could buy my own sandwiches at some point. But so they were always very supportive, and I think early on it was about writing. I think actually acting was sort of a default, so I could be involved in the theater. But they were always very encouraging about my writing and about and I always from early on wrote stories or wrote things. So the writing was always there. It wasn't that I acted and then decided to stop and start writing. It was that I was doing both of those things, and then it kind of what I was attracted to and what the universe was telling me I should do more of kind of synced up. I also did a lot of comedy improv in college, and so that is sort of performance, but it's also it's writing. It's and I sort of really liked the craft of improv. I mean, this was early 90s, so this was a lot more whose line is it anyway, and less here's an hour-long free-form Herald that has no jokes. This was more here's a quip.
Right.
Our group was called, it still exists, it was called Quip Fire, just to let you know.
Oh, okay.
And there were T-shirts that said Quip Fire, it was that type of dorky white.
Give us an object.
Yes, we do the games where you all line up, and step out and say a joke and then get back in line.
Right.
That was the type of stuff. But when you did scenes, I really liked. I started as a foreshadow of what I do now, I quickly became the managing director of the improv group, and I was the one who put together the manual and the best practices, and I really loved the craft of, what are you doing when you're doing a scene, and what are the conflicts you're trying to establish, and the different the vectors of intention, and I sort of got off on the immediate structure that you want to, you're in a bathroom and you're both raccoons,
right,
go.
right.
And then I love the immediate thing of what's our conflict. Well, I'm the raccoon who works here, I'm the raccoon visiting, or I'm the raccoon who loves the bathrooms, and you're a raccoon who, most raccoons would love bathrooms probably, so
of course,
that's sort of a false.
They'd be thrilled to be in a bathroom.
Usually it's warm and there's some sort of food. There's raccoony food, not human food. Raccoons are dirty and very resourceful. So
sure.
If you're fine with dirty stuff and resourceful
Well, and
bathrooms,
I have a feeling that a raccoon would consider toothpaste dessert, and that would be wonderful for them.
that's true. I was thinking public bathroom. You're thinking.
I'm thinking nice. I'm thinking like a pristine, wonderful.
No, I'm thinking like truck stop bathroom. I'm thinking like what would a raccoon do with an air blower? That's what I'm thinking. But yeah. So I just sort of liked the writing aspect of improv, and so and that stuff in my writing, I think it's still sort of heavily influenced by improv, especially when I write sort of comedic plays, and and then definitely the management side. Now that I manage a theater company, I realized early on that I love both of those sides. I love creating theater, I love creating art, I love writing, and I also really sadly love spreadsheets and rules.
Really?
And
this
budgeting.
Is so weird. Usually the writer, right? You have you love one or the other.
Yeah, I really I don't know why I love but I think I also I loved not that I was into it that much, but I had a little tiny comic book collection. But more than reading them, I loved listing them. I loved keeping track of all the comics I had. So yeah, it's a little obsessive.
So you have some obsessive compulsive stuff going on.
But I think most writers are a little
Are
obsessive.
your kids' toys organized at home?
No, because you just literally, it's like, I even though I'm obsessive, if I'm in a typhoon, the typhoon kind of decides what happens.
Succumb to the surroundings.
I feel some angst every so often, but no, the kids decide what the house is like.
Yeah.
I try to sort of shove things into piles. And sort of your life when you have kids is every night you just try to reset everything to zero, because then they're going to destroy it the next day, and so we try to reset it. But also when you have, we had the first kid, and you don't get rid of any of the toys because you're thinking, well, we're probably going to have a second kid, and they're going to want these toys. So nothing has left our house in like years. And now that finally we have our final kid, growing up, the final kid,
right?
Now starting to age out of stuff.
Oh, and that stuff can go.
Everything behind. It's like the end of a parade. We're just like, as soon as she clears out, we're just throwing it away and scrubbing it down, and so it's. You wonder why when you first have a kid, you wonder why everyone is giving you all this stuff, and you feel kind of embarrassed, like, why are you giving? You shouldn't give us all those clothes. Why are you giving us all this stuff? And then you realize now why they're doing it. That is
they don't want it. Yeah.
No, you just in a panic get it out of my house, and so
you're doing them the favor.
I will do that at some point soon. We'll be like, here's 12 trash bags of onesies. Take them right now.
You're welcome.
We're gonna slow the car down and throw them out of the car.
What you should do is, when the time comes, find the closest friend you have. Maybe they don't even need to be that close. Just like a friend of a friend you heard is expecting, and at night, just drop all this stuff in their yard with a note that says you're welcome.
I don't think it should be a close friend. I think it should be somewhat, even an enemy, really. If we find an enemy we're expecting, we'll just throw We'll TP their house with onesies.
That's a great idea. I like this. I like this.
Yeah, it is crazy. So they've also, it's hard. They eliminate all your writing time, but the time. But I guess the one good thing about my improv background and the way I've even wrote when I was, a 20-something, I have all day to write a poem, when I was in that period of my life, is that I've never been one who has to be in the mood. I've never been one who has to only write at a certain time. I've always kind of been, clock in, gotta sit down and write, clock out. And so that's helpful because now, if I ever do have time to write, it's the 45 minutes while both my kids are unconscious. Mm-hmm. And I can't wait to get in the mood.
Right.
I just have to go, okay, quick, right. So that's helpful that I can just, okay, gotta work. It's like being on the clock.
But you did, I think I remember hearing you say that you kind of took a break from writing. Like you didn't write for a little while.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've written. I have my play that opens mid-February of this year at Sacred Fools called Pastime. It's a world premiere, but the first draft of it I wrote 6, 7, 8 years ago. So it sort of feels like I have a new play, but that's actually a play that predates my kids. Mm-hmm. And I actually have a full-length just play, just out of the depth of my soul. It's been years, because managing a theater company and then my kids and then doing freelance stuff to pay the rent, and my wife and I have like 6 jobs between us, and so I have the kids a lot. I'm sort of a part-time stay-at-home dad too, and so I have gotten a lot of writing in, but it's been a screenplay project or a for-hire musical that I'm doing.
Right.
There have been projects, but and they've been good, and some of them have been fulfilling, but my list of plays that speak to me that I want to get to has been frozen for a little while.
And do you have those? Do you have sort of like a list that you're keeping? Like,
yeah,
when I'm going to get to this.
I've not to say that they're all good ideas, but I've never been one to go, oh no, what do I write next? I have a laundry list of projects, and some of them have been on the list and have been triaged for years. Like new things have jumped up above them. Other things, I don't think I'm good enough yet to write. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully no one else thinks they're good enough to write them, because I feel like they're sort of ideas that are exciting. And if I have enough time, maybe I'll foolishly try to start them. But there's stuff that I don't feel like it's a crime to put off, because I feel like, there's stuff I'm writing now that the 30-something me, I don't think would have done as a good a job. And when I think of the 50-something me, I'm like, that guy might kick this play's ass.
Right, and you're patient enough to wait for a 50s version of you to...
No, right now I don't have a choice. But yeah, no, I think that's the direction that's good. I feel like I'm getting better as a writer every year. And so, not that I don't love and find value in stuff I wrote, 20 years ago. I think there's cool stuff, and I'm proud of what I've written, but I feel like everything I write sort of adds to my skill set, and so I don't have that feeling of, if only I could recapture the magic of blah blah blah, So I sort of feel like it is a craft, and it is and the more you live, the more. What's interesting is the play that I have going up is all about aging and about. There's a reference in it where some character says, "I want to grow old with you and get married under an oak tree and have a baby boy." And I wrote that, I think, when my son was, how did I know it was a baby boy? Maybe I didn't yet. Or maybe he was just born when I wrote that line. Now I have a daughter. And so now every time we're in rehearsal now and I hear that line and I'm like, should I change that?
Right.
Or no, that's where I was then.
Right.
I was actually looking ahead, not even having kids yet. and the whole play is about looking back on your life. It's just an interesting play to dust off and do as a world premiere when it's about looking back at your life and about memories and about um, so long story short, there's stuff that I'm itching to do some play that no one's asking me to write.
Mm-hmm.
I'm itching to do that passion thing, and there's a few things that I might start soon. And as the kids now are, one's about to go to kindergarten, and one is about 2 years away from preschool, and
right.
as they start getting out of the house, it'll be easier. So,
do you have, when you're sort of collecting your ideas or you're finding an inspiration, does it tend to be form? Like, is it an idea of like a structure, or is it more content?
I think maybe content, and usually it's something will really connect when two ideas link together. So I'll have an idea for, I'll have an image or just sort of a dynamic, or a tension, or a sort of an opening kind of scene, and then that'll sort of percolate, and then it'll really activate when this other idea I've been also thinking of, then I go, oh, those are the same play. And I think maybe there's a tension in sort of two awesome ideas that you're thinking of. When all of a sudden when two ideas resonate, then there's a tension there that then sort of activates. And so I think the current play I'm working on, I had this image of these basically two grumpy old men painting unicorns, like doing like arts and crafts, painting handmade unicorns and just being grumpy together. And that just sat with me for a long time. And then there was and then I also had an idea of people playing other people's other people playing other people, sort of being. The play is about someone who hires their grandpa to go on a date with their girlfriend, because he's being a terrible boyfriend, and so he's like, well, if you, not even a girlfriend yet, it's like, there's been a few dates and it's going terribly, and so he hires his grandpa to play the character of him, because he thinks his grandpa is going to be much better with the ladies, and so it's sort of a love letter to theater and playing parts, and so that was also an idea, and then I realized, wait, that grandpa's the guy painting unicorns, and then once I kind of made that connection. Yeah. This play kind of started to flesh out. So usually it's a scene or an image or maybe a concrete metaphor. Not really themes. The themes to me kind of come out of that's the dead body that floats to the surface of the lake after So I don't really start from a political point of view or a thematic point of view. I want to do a play about homelessness, or those plays are awesome and needed. But that's not my strength. I sort of start from maybe it's the improv background. I start from what are we seeing on stage, and what's that evocative, often absurd, comedic tension.
And I think this is why I asked the question, because you have such an interesting point of view on stage, and you have plays that are I don't know how to describe, wild, whimsical, super theatrical on one end of the sort of like comedic spectrum, like Beaver Quest. Yeah. Right? And then I think the most recent play of yours that I remember seeing is Puzzler. Yeah. At Sacred Fools. I guess both were done at Sacred Fools. Yeah. But then Puzzler was much, I mean, it's very theatrical in its own way, but very serious. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, and I think with Puzzler, I also have been trying, as I kind of try to stretch my muscles, I guess, as a writer, I definitely with Puzzler and even this next play, Pastime, I set goals for myself. I set sort of limitations of what am I not good at? What scares me? And I kind of, with Puzzler, what scares me? Well, definitely directing my own play kind of scares me. So let me try to do that. And something based historically, in a not just out of whole cloth out of my head, but something that I have to do research on and have some sort of fidelity to. That's terrifying, and it seems like a lot of work. So let me try to do that. And how about I direct some really awesome older actors? That's a terrifying thing. So I'm going to write older characters, and so I kind of tried to set these things that kind of scared me, because I wanted to do all that scary stuff before I had a kid, because I thought I would take a break, and so I didn't want to be holding a 6-month-old going, I really have an urge to, like, I did a bunch of scary stuff first, and I could take a break. But and even with Pastime, I thought, okay, it's going to be I'm going to have 2 locations, and the primary one's going to be a living room, and I was going to try to write the most normal play I could, because I think early on I wrote, not that I was trying to be absurd for absurdist's sake, but I really thought, and not that I won't do this again, but I'm going to make the most fantastical thing I can think of. And I thought, okay, now the experiment is I'm going to try to write the most normal play I can do, with the confidence that my brain is just wired in that weird way. Like trying to write my living room play, it's going to get weird, no matter what I do, and be happy with that, And so, so with this play, it definitely has some magic in it. It has some, but it's grounded in a way that it's a nice change for me, and and I'm excited to sort of explore that.
When you were doing your weird plays early on, why do you think, looking back, why do you think you had that sort of like impulse? I need to do these weird things. I have these, like, was it to get attention? Was it sort of like, were you actively trying to figure out your own voice, or did you really think you were just weird?
I just sort of I just wrote what I mean, I think it comes down to that's my brain just thinks in those weird ways, and I just went with it, and I was just exploring, and again, I don't think those were, I like those plays, and I love going in those places, to those weird places, but it it's like, who do you write for? Are you writing for some audience that you're imagining? Are you writing for yourself? And I kind of, I think in the end, you're writing for an audience of yourself. You're writing, like, I can only write to the magic moments for me was when I write, when I actually find myself arrested and no one else is in the room, and I'm taken, like, my breath is taken away by something I've created, and not to say that it's brilliant, but it just surprises me. And I think that I've always sort of scoffed at, like, the characters were doing their own thing, and I don't really, it's not the characters taking on a life of their own, but sort of just the world or the metaphor, kind of, when I all of a sudden realize something that's happening or something that I've created, and I didn't plan the whole thing, but something has come to life, and I go, oh my gosh, that's that, and that's and so I hope audiences feel the same way when I.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because I so closely align you with Sacred Fools.
Yeah.
You're managing director, and you have so many plays that have been produced there, but I also see the way you write and your style so fitting in the tone and the artistic direction of that theater. So it's kind of like the chicken and egg. What came first?
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's a reason why I've been so devoted to that theater, is that there's also a bunch of crazy artists that are like me there. So we all kind of, aim the boat in the same direction. Yeah, and what's fun is that it's not, there's definitely nothing precious about what we do. We tend to try to just do a ton, and so it's really, even like our show Serial Killers, where a lot of my stuff has come out of. It's just, let's just do it. The joke is, it's like, it's quality, but we also think quantity is important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that I mean, there's theaters in this town that I have 1,000 times respect for, and I think do amazing work, and do 2 or 3 shows a year, and that's what they, these boutique companies
Mm-hmm.
that are amazing. But that's just not. I just want to keep doing stuff, and we want to. It's like, and that Sacred Fools is. Let's do another show. Let's do late night after the main stage. Let's do a bunch of late night stuff. Let's put in. Serial Killers. Let's do it one time. Let's put all this work in and do, an hour and a half of original material and fully produce it, and then just do it once. And let's start again this next week.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's sort of invigorating. Of like it, and so I think a lot of. And that's also very improv-y, going back to what we were talking about. It's just, who cares if it's not necessarily even the best idea right now. It's an idea. We'll do another idea in another moment. Let's do another idea, and then next week let's just scrap that and do something else, and then just keep, and that muscle of just make is exciting.
Sacred Fools is really, I've always been so fascinated by and had so much respect for the company because you're so prolific, and because it seems like you're always having fun, and that there is the this mentality that I adore, which is the we're all in this together mentality that the company seems to have. But I'm intrigued by the sort of organizational structure, because I'm a big sort of like organizational minded person.
Yeah.
Like I love structure, and I love to function within a strong structure and understand my role inside it. And Sacred Fools from the outside, I have no association. You're probably the person I know best from the company. Seems like there are 1,000 people and 1,000 people in charge. I understand you're the managing director, but I still feel like there's 1,000 people in charge of the company. Can you talk about sort of like how the company is run and how like decisions are made?
Yeah, so it's we're a big messy democracy. So we elect our artistic directors. As the managing director, I'm in charge of the ship, but we have a huge all volunteer staff. So so people just sort of jump into we need a couple people to do grants, and then I'll ask around and find someone who can do it, and they jump in on staff and they start doing grants, but everyone is just volunteering their time. We have a large staff because it's all volunteer, so we spread it out. But then we do so much that I can't produce each show. And even the staff can't really produce each show. So people, on each show we have producers that are, they don't get the money, they don't spend the money, they just sort of coordinate, and they're the ones who are responsible. They're the ones who jump in and make that show happen and work their ass off. And so for each of our shows, there's another little staff of people who are jumping in and leading the charge. But it is a big, people drop in and out of staff, and people get jobs and leave and get, and our membership constantly changes, and we have a ton of people who are surprised aren't officially members. We have this huge community of members, and then this bigger community of people who are part of our family, and then an even bigger community of people who think of us as one of their homes, or come through every so often and do something and then leave. And so that's also what's enjoyable. We make the art. Occasionally we make some pretty great art. Sometimes we make some art that we're glad we'd made it and we're going to put it away. But it's the community that's exciting too.
And does the work you produce always come from, like, bubble up from within?
No, it's that's also just a big old mess. I think in a good way. So a lot of stuff will bubble up and come out of our late night show, and it's really homegrown. Other things are company members want to do it, and they found it at Sam French, or they have a buddy who's a playwright in New York and they want to do it. Other times it's the artistic directors who bring in another theater company, or they find a project from outside and it's really coming from the artistic directors and introducing it to our company. And so it's a big mixture of stuff. which is good because we've always the foolish part of us is that we don't do any of the things that you should if you want to have like a solvent theater company. That we don't charge dues. We don't really have that many perks for members. We have open auditions. Like there's no real reason. If someone asks, well, why should I be a member? Then it's like, oh, then you probably shouldn't. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are perks and there's stuff, but it's really we don't have the carrots and sticks that most places have. It's just
although it does seem like a perk for you, Padraic the Playwright. I mean, there is this affiliation you've had with them has been quite a perk for you because you had like 6 plays produced there.
Yeah, no, it is a perk. I mean, I still have to go through the same, submit my plays and the artistic directors pick it and stuff. But no, it is I mean, I think that's why people value their membership. That's why I value my membership. That I like to be there when in the petri dish of when things are happening and to be able to. I mean, anyone can run for artistic director. So anyone in our company can go, I want to be someone who chooses the art we do and help people get their stuff done. And they can just run.
So this is interesting because, we often will associate theaters, especially, around Los Angeles. That's the artistic leader of that theater. And that is the person who ultimately is the one that we look at who has guided the artistic vision of that season and picked the plays and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
What is the so you have artistic directors, multiple, who are elected and for a period of time, I assume, and then they are tasked with picking the next season. Like bringing on what is their sort of like? Do they have a job description?
Yeah, I mean, the main job description is to partner up with me and try to make this ship not sink.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it isn't. There's an ownership part of like you are an artistic director, so let's keep this place going and vibrant. But we used to elect a whole new 3 new people every season, and so we've recently made a change where. Every year 1 position is up because we had the urge of having a little more long-term planning, a little more consistency. But they're tasked with choosing the next season, and the members can propose shows. And so I just said, hey, I want to do my play Pastime, and they read the play and talk to me and whatever, and then they end up choosing. We usually do.
And the 3 of them
they get together
privately decide yes or no.
Yeah.
And that doesn't get awkward or loaded or anything? Like your relationships don't get...
Sure. No, things get really crazy. And no, it's, because everyone's also really good friends.
Yeah.
Or so it is really messy. But, I think out of that tension comes some exciting stuff, So, I've never seen a vote happen. 2 to 3, we picked that show. Like, they just drink more coffee, keep talking about it, and they come to a consensus of what they think. Hopefully we're going to be able to do some more long-term planning, and so we can do stuff that I think is going to be very exciting where, okay, that exciting thing that we did in Serial Killers that's just, 10 pages of something, well, let's do a big, cool show, and let's schedule it for 3 years from now, and let's bring in some other artists and let's work with them and
so essentially commission a project.
We can do commissions, we can do long-term planning, get a grant to do that thing, do that play with the community. There's all kinds of stuff that you can't do when your first play goes up in 6 months, and
right.
So hopefully that'll allow us to do a little more planning and a little more artistic ground up stuff.
When you did Behavior of Brodus, was that more of a presenting, or was that a collaboration?
I mean, that was interesting. So that was the Burglars had worked on it with CTG, and they did a workshop production of it at Kirk Douglas. And then the people over there are amazing. And so Pierre Carlo and literary department and the whole group loved Burglars, loved the show. They just couldn't, for whatever reason, couldn't do it in their season. And so, because we worked with Burglars before, they came to us and said, "Here's a world premiere musical. We'd love to work with you again." And so we so it was we was going to be a co-production. They had their script, and they had artists that they some designers that they wanted to bring in. We had open auditions, so obviously some of the amazing actors that they had worked with before came back in. And it was kind of half and half, our actors and their actors. So it was their script, but we created the production together. And then Center Theater Group, as soon as we linked arms, Center Theater Group said, we want to help in whatever way we can, and they helped out, and they were wonderful. So it ended up being a great three-way collaboration. But it would also be exciting. That was exciting because it was a wonderful script and exciting, and very much the type of thing we like to do anyway.
The styles were a perfect marriage.
It would also be great with Burglars or with other theater companies to go, hey, let's make something together. I don't even know what it is yet, and that would be exciting as well, to do that type of thing, because in the past we haven't had the ability to start something from the ground floor of like, what you thinking about? I don't know. What are we thinking about? And that would be exciting to work with some of the amazing artists we've worked with in the past. So hopefully we can do some more. We can do some of that moving forward.
Yeah. Are you okay for time?
Yeah. I think so, but my wife just texted me, "What's your ETA?" So what is my ETA? Just so I can.
We have a few minutes. We have a few minutes left. We're almost done.
Okay, let me just tell her we're almost done.
I have a few final curiosities.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me just.
We're not cutting this, by the way. We're keeping this. We've never had somebody
having the wife text
their wife during the podcast.
Well, at some point she has to leave, and I don't think the state frowns on letting your kids run around your house alone.
The state.
Even though we block the stairs, the parrot, the parrot that will kill them, is locked in a cage.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know.
Tell her it's for me.
I'm going to say, when do you have to leave?
Well, while you are finishing your text, I will line up my next question.
Yes.
Because the sort of like big news about Sacred Fools was this new space, and what I loved about you guys taking over. I don't know if you're taking over the Elephant space, but you're moving into the space vacated by Elephant Theater Company, and what I loved about that so much is that it seems like the story over the years has been, at least in recent years, a theater will move out of a space, or a theater will dissolve, and that space will become like a marijuana dispensary, or it'll become condos.
Yeah.
Like it no longer a theater. So I was like, oh, I'm so glad a theater is moving into the theater, so that space is going to continue to exist. And I kind of hope that with Sacred Fools space, I don't know, but there's been no buzz about that.
Yeah.
But I'm really curious about the sort of like, how did this come to be, and how you see the future now that you're going to have this different space, and then like multiple spaces maybe, and how, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so it came to be. I mean, we for a long time have been thinking about moving, and over the years there's certain limitations to our space and what we can do, and sort of by no means we didn't have the horror stories that some companies did with their rents, where the next month it's tripled. That didn't happen with us. It was much more of a slowly increasing the temperature of the frog in the bucket, but we didn't but just the slow increase of even a natural increase. It was just getting to the point where we were slowly boiling, and so
you suddenly realized, wait, the water's
it's a little hot here, and so we've been looking for a while, sort of a soft search, and of course we haven't moved because we'd be leaving something that has been very good to us, and so but recently we recommitted to it. It just got to the point where it's we need to make a leap, and so we sort of started having conversations about where could we rent, could we buy, what investors, sort of those conversations that any arts organization, whatever size, would have if you do something this big. It's who are our donors, who are our investors, who believes in us, who, and one of our biggest supporters were my parents, and not even financially. We've actually we haven't had anyone floating our bills, but they and they've always believed in me, as good parents do. I think what changed was I think they believed in our company, in a real sort of, not just in the artists, because I think they've probably always felt warm about the artists and they've seen the work done over the years, but about where we were going, our vision, financially, our goals, and where we wanted to put the business and how the business could support the artists. And so I think that once that married, once they believed in me, they believed in our artists, and they said, you know what, we think this is viable. We think where you want to go makes sense. And so, and really, we had that conversation where they said, okay, we're interested in supporting. If there was something that made sense, then the elephant stages literally fell out of the sky. So, within weeks. And so we jumped. And so what was great is that we could jump on it because we had sort of all committed to the work and committed to everything. So, and I do think besides, we've been in there a couple weeks now, and it feels like us. It already feels kind of like home. And back to what we were saying, like it is, I think to have a company in there, there's plenty of companies that would be wonderful in there. I think we're well suited to it because of both how prolific we are and how open we are. So the fact that we want to be prolific, we want to do a lot of programming in there. We also are open. We want to work. We want to do stuff with other theater companies, with other artists. We want to host other theater companies. I think it would be wonderful to bring in some of the theater companies that are homeless, that do wonderful work, and have them be able to rent space and work with us. And so that's exciting. And and I think there's going to be. I sound like an adult when I say this. I'm very bullish, on the Theater Row. I think there's going to be more good news coming, and I think that the city, and I think the patrons, and I think the artists are ready. I'm tired of bad news, and I'm tired of bad news sort of passively hitting us. I think it's time to sort of make some good news. And that's easier said than done, but there's a lot of people who care about theater, and it's about getting to them. And
are you going to be participating in Hollywood Fringe?
We have every intention to, and we have to. We're starting to just now schedule the meetings and find out what does that mean.
Right.
So
because that would be, oh my God, talk about a change. Like that would have huge ripple effects if those spaces that were so integral to to the Fringe Festival were no longer part of it.
No, we want to do Fringe 100%. We're in. So we want to.
What does this mean to us?
So we just don't know. I just haven't gotten the welcome packet yet. So I don't quite know what I'm committing to right now. But no, we want. I mean, besides the fact that the Fringe Festival is amazing, and what it's doing exactly what I feel like it's led the way in that. It's sort of what Stephen Lee Morris said in one of his recent articles of realizing that a lot of the success of Fringe is in its geography. And I think people want to have a place. I mean, there's great satellite theater areas, whether it's Pasadena or Atwater or, there's plenty of places that will continue to be vibrant little satellites. I think Theater Row also wants to be a satellite like that and wants to be a hub. And I think people yearn for hubs. And I think that's why if the Fringe Festival had all the same shows, but they were spread out all over LA County, it'd be a lot less successful.
Sure, yeah.
And so I think there's going to be more and more companies moving into Theater Row. I think more theater companies. There's a lot of rental houses that have done a lot of great work and served a great purpose and will still be there. But I think there'll be a lot more companies moving in and a lot more companies locking arms and trying to create a community. And so I think Fringe is great, and I think a lot of our company members are doing more and more Fringe. We had no official shows last year, and we had like 8 shows.
Right.
And so so I would love to just be stocked to the gills with Fringe shows, so we'll see when I get the welcome packet what we have to do.
I hope there is a welcome packet.
I really hope there is a welcome packet.
I have one last question,
Yeah.
so you can prep your text to the wife to
Okay.
say I'm leaving soon. I'm curious when this moment comes, going back to what we were talking about earlier, when the moment comes when you finally have like that freedom, and you're gonna write the thing.
Yeah.
You're like the thing that's just you, that's coming from you. It's not a paid project. What is it?
What is it? So there is the next thing is so here's something. Talk about what scares you. So, but what scares you, but what you think you could do well, and what excites you is there's a farce, sort of a hotel, like a 1940s nice hotel bedroom farce that I want to do, and it's sort of historically based, sort of loosely about,
Based on a historical event, you mean?
Yeah, sort of in an event in World War II, and so and I don't really know much about it yet, but it's a little historical nugget that I don't even really want to reveal.
Yeah, don't reveal it.
But
don't reveal
but
it.
it's exciting, and it's also a lot of work, which is but that's sort of the thing that no one's asked me to do, and no one knows I want to do it.
Yeah.
Except for the one person who told me about the event, and they said, you can write the play, I don't mind. And I was like, okay, I'll put it on my list. And so a big old silly farce is what I'm going to do.
And this aged Padraic can write this play.
I think so. I mean, maybe the older me will look at it and do some rewrites that'll make sense. But it's just scary enough that I want to tackle it.
Yeah.
And there's a sort of a sci-fi, like a 19th century sci-fi musical that I also want to do. That's based on a public domain thing. And so those two things.
Is there something that scares you about that as well?
Yeah, I can't read a lick of music, so I have to. Yeah, what scares me about it is I want to do. I want to add some sort of tech stuff. There's a lot of plays about virtual reality, about it. Like that sort of seems like it's the hot thing.
Yeah.
Have your play about tech. There's not a lot of plays that have tech, and so I want to do some. I have some friends who, have software companies, and I have some friends who might, so maybe I'm excited about some co-production stuff where everyone has to wear some glasses or something.
That's great. That's great.
That's stuff that as soon as I can take my manager hat off and the kids can go into daycare, I'll sit down and work on some stuff. But
I love that you follow your fears.
Yeah, it's
love
one.
that.
One person told me long ago, when you have a to-do list, start with the thing that scares you the most. And I try to do that because when you have to clean the bathroom and you have to call that agent, you're going to clean the bathroom first. And I've learned, just call the agent first. Just do it. You'll always figure out a bathroom to clean. You'll never get to the part of the list that's, ask that girl out or call DWP, the scary DWP thing, or make that cold call or do whatever. You'll always clean the bathroom and reorder your socks. So do the thing that scares you, and that's sort of I feel like that's kind of how I met my wife. She was way too pretty for me to talk to her. I had no business talking to her, but I was like, you march back there, you talk to her, and So yeah, do what scares you. And do it first.
I like that. Well, thanks for doing this today. I appreciate it.
This wasn't scary, so this is why this is.
So you'll never do it again.
This is the last thing I'm doing today because this is the no. Thank you for having me.
All right. Big thank you to Padraic for coming in today. Go see his play Pastime when it opens in February at the new Sacred Fools space, which is the old Elephant Theater space. Thank you always to Bill Bordy, whose generosity is the reason At This Stage magazine exists. And if At This Stage magazine didn't exist, this podcast wouldn't exist. And what would we all be doing with our time then? Thank you to John and Oogie Boogie Studio for giving us a place to record, and thank you to Danny for being a boss. The theme song for the Subtext is by International Pen Pal. Find them on iTunes and buy their one and only album. Keep in touch with us on Twitter at Subtext Podcast. Email us at thesubtextpodcast@gmail.com. Anyway, welcome to the end of the episode. Next month, I will sing the entire Hamilton cast album a cappella. Just you wait.